Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Friday show. This is episode 264. Got another really tight but very knowledgeable panel of WordPress expert gurus joining me for my little chat on Fridays. And we've got some interesting news stories to discuss. Well, I think we have. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves quickly and then we're going to delve straight into it. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Sallie Goetsch. My business is WP Fangirl. I do custom Genesis websites for growing businesses and nonprofits, and I'm organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup in Oakland, California.
All right. And Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of Lifter LMS, which is a WordPress system for creating and selling engaging online courses.
Yeah, and you've been busy with some updates, haven't you? Do you want to quickly say what you've been up to with Lifter LMS? Or is he frozen? I think he's frozen, isn't he? I'll let him do that later on in the show. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing.
Just released an advanced quiz.
Oops, we've got some sound problems. You're going to have to speak a bit later, Chris. Go on, John. Sorry.
So I'm John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design, and I provide SEO for manufacturers and other blue-collar companies.
I think Chris has got his he's got his internet back. Would you quickly like to say something about Lifter then, Chris?
Yeah, we just released an advanced add-on for advanced quizzes. So it's a pretty cool update to our software for selling courses.
Yeah, it looks really cool. All right. And I'm the host of this. I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We're a support maintenance development company with a speciality in learning management systems and membership websites. Before we go into our news stories, I want to talk quickly about our sponsor for this particular show, and that's Intelligence WP. And what is Intelligence WP? It puts your Google Analytics account on steroids, basically. It really puts your data, it provides a lot more information, and it provides enormous graphs. You just have to go and have a look at it. You're going to be kind of blown away by it, really. It's an amazing plugin. And it's free. They have some support packages to get you started and give you some training. But the actual plugin is totally free, and it's quite amazing. So go and have a look at that, folks. So we're going to go straight into the stories. It's been a busy week with the news in WordPress, and iThemes is joining the Liquid Web family. And also there's a secondary story about Updraft Plus buying another plugin that I regularly use on almost all our client websites, which is Easy Update Manager plugin. Anybody want to start off about commenting about that news story?
I think we need to hear why John wasn't surprised.
Yeah, go on, John. Why was you surprised?
Yeah, sure. And I think the reaction, and quite a few people, I don't think that it's shocking. I think the timing is the only thing that was really shocking. I don't think that anybody who pays attention is like completely blown away by this. And the reason I say that is iThemes has been working hand in hand with Liquid Web for a while now. iThemes Sync is part of the Managed WordPress portal there. So they have a working relationship. And Corey Miller, his wife, has been working for Liquid Web for a little while. Chris Lemma, who is the head of product innovation for the WordPress the Managed WordPress part of Liquid Web, and Corey are really good friends. So I don't think it's really like a big surprise. I'm very happy for Corey and Lindsay and their team, and I'm glad that they have a place to continue to develop iThemes, and I'm happy for their team as well. because they're not losing no employees are being laid off in this acquisition. So I think that's good.
Yeah, sounds great to me. What do you think, Sally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a logical move. I didn't specifically see it coming, but this is not the first time that a hosting company has acquired a company that offers, tools for website maintenance. That is logical. And of course, the next question is, so who is going to acquire WP-Tonic?
Oh, someday, hopefully someday. You never know. That's maybe one day. Yeah, I was a little bit, obviously a little bit concerned, but I bought some additional licenses just before the announcement come out, because I used 2 of their products on all my client sites. So we've had some more clients, so we had to buy some more licenses of packaging. The Security Pro plugin goes on almost all our client sites, and they've got some really good products. So I was a little bit concerned about what the future is, but I think I got in at the right moment, because I think it's basically going to be a very similar setup to what GoDaddy has done with some WordPress plugin products which they've bought. What do you think, Chris? Chris, can you?
I think if we take a step back and look at the big picture hosting problem, and is my audio coming through okay?
It's breaking up a little bit. Maybe you should bail out and sign back in and see if that improves it.
Yes.
Yep. Yes, you can. Right. Sally, because what about Updraft buying? They're doing the same thing, aren't they? They seem to be buying.
Well, yes, Updraft has been buying a variety of things lately. They bought Metaslider, which is not necessarily a logic, but they bought Optimize WP, which made sense to go along with. They have this backup plugin and maintenance type thing, so an update related thing. I mean, one of the reasons that as much as I love things about Backup Buddy, the iThemes backup plugin, which is great for migration and stuff, I've started using Updraft Plus Pro on a lot of sites because it automatically backs up your site before updates. And so them buying a plugin that controls when stuff gets updated is very logical.
Yeah, it is, and them buying this other plugin is quite logical as well, isn't it? Which everybody, all the things that I use regularly on my client sites that people buy, and I just take it as confirmation that
yes. Well, it's given the rash of cases that we had a few months ago, where malicious parties were buying up plugins and using them for nefarious purposes. Having a legitimate company buy something and put it to good use is really a relief.
Oh, that's great. Chris is back. So would you like to comment on the purchase of iThemes, Chris?
Sure. Just to take a step back and look at the hosting problem in general, as I call it. People have trouble with hosting and getting set up with their website, getting support. So what's happening is these niche hosting companies are providing solutions. I think WP Engine has done a great job building the web hosting company for agencies and really pro-level end users. And Liquid Web recently announced their WooCommerce hosting, which is a really interesting category to open up into and specialize in. And some of the areas, the problems they're solving in there for store owners is very specific and niche, which I really like. And it's a hosting issue, but it's also a WordPress issue that if WordPress with this whole Gutenberg thing and everything else is going to compete with the website in a box services like Squarespace and Wix and all these other things, it needs to make the process of getting going and being supported a lot easier. And I think this is a step in that direction. Liquid Web, specifically focusing on WooCommerce managed hosting, I think is really interesting. The security and the backup intelligence coming out of iThemes into that, which is important to the professional website owner. So it just makes sense to me that this is a good play in the service of, you know, that web backend that customers actually want and need.
Yeah, I think it's a scramble. Also, you know, they can see where WordPress.com is going. It's pretty clear how things might be going. So they've got to find something that makes them different, you know, in some ways from a lot of hosting. But that's no different, you know, that's no different to a lot of different kind of businesses, isn't it? You know, it will be interesting to see how all this plays out, you know, and it really depends on how they handle the purchase of iThemes. You know, do they close down? You know, I would imagine it hasn't happened so far, has it? But at some stage you close it down unless you won't have access to some of iThemes products unless you actually host your website with Liquid Web. But that hasn't happened with the products that GoDaddy have bought. They're still open.
No, it doesn't. It works pretty much exactly the same, except that there are a few of their pro services that GoDaddy customers get free.
Yeah.
And you know, that may well be the direction that Liquid Web goes with iThemes, is that if you host at Liquid Web, you get some of these, you know, pro iThemes tools for free. I mean, they were already doing that with the Sync product. And so that becomes an added, you know, incentive or a differentiator in terms of, you know, this comes with our hosting and it doesn't come with other people's hosting. And you know, differentiation is increasingly important as any marketplace matures.
Yeah, that's true. I think we go on to the next story then. WordPress turns 15 years old. Another tavern story in a way.
Seems like I just got my 10-year t-shirt.
Exactly. You know, it was an interesting article because there's been there's been a bit of discussion in the Slack channels and on Twitter that we're facing the possibility of another major forking event in the history of WordPress. That some people that I consider, that I listen to, that I think, I won't name names, but there seems to be wording that some people think that that what's happened in this year and last year and what is proposed this year will mean that WordPress will have a major forking event. What does the panel think? Do you think that might be a possibility, or?
I'm kind of skeptical on that notion myself. I mean, I think a lot of people are very concerned, but forking WordPress at this point is a massive undertaking. And so who is going to do it and, you know, rewrite it and maintain it and produce it and all of that?
Yeah, what do you think? Sorry, Chris, do you want to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's really a leadership question. The surest way to predict the future is to invent it. So if somebody sees a better way and you know, then going where it's going, that requires leadership. And I'm not as plugged in. I'm not hearing a clear voice or message around that. I do hear, you know, fear and concern and anxiety and, you know, some in the ecosystem, but I haven't heard a clear voice about like this new destination that's worthy of another split in the path, if you will. So I'm open to the possibility. I don't think it's impossible at all, but I think it's more likely I mean, let's see how Gutenberg plays out. But if there's a leader, like a visionary leader or group of people who see something proactively, it could happen sooner than later. I'm open to the possibility, but and I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing. But like Sallie said, it would be a major undertaking.
What do you think, John?
I think that there's people that talk about forking, but as Chris and Sallie both mentioned, it's going to be a big undertaking. So I think you're going to need a group of people to decide that they want to fork it. I think what's more likely to happen is something like a member of the community breaking off and making their own CMS, kind of similar to what John O'Nolan did a few years ago with Ghost. That's what I see as like more likely. I think for a WordPress fork to happen, I think if it was to happen, I think if you had a group of people that were somewhat respected and broke off and made a fork, I think a lot of people might follow on to that. But until that happens, I don't think you're going to see a fork. So,
yeah, I think you've made all excellent points, because I think it's easy. The talk is easy, but it, like what Sallie said, and the other panel have confirmed, it'd be a very large undertaking, wouldn't it? And
you would really need a specific vision, because I don't think like creating a fork of WordPress in order to keep it the same is a sufficient, that's not going to go anywhere. And I also keep seeing more encouraging news about, such and such is, this is now working with Gutenberg, and this is now working with Gutenberg, and this is now. So I think, by the time it's out, there's going to be a lot less stuff to worry about. And sure, there will be some issues with a change, because it's a change, and yet we've seen that consumers can handle when there's a big change in the in the iPhone interface, and people can actually survive these things even if they resist them initially.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think we're going to go for our break, folks. We're coming back. We've got some other stories that come from the panel themselves, and the latest, some more additional stories. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've got some more news stories. I'd like to start with this WooCommerce 3.3 removed from the plugin directory due to theme conflict. Anybody want to comment about that one? Oh, Chris does.
I'll jump in. We've released a version of Lifter LMS before and then brought it back before because we made a mistake or we didn't catch something in our testing that was affecting people. So I'm not even remembering exactly what it was, but we had to do that before, and it was the right thing to do. And it becomes like it's a PR moment, but I'm always a big fan of like owning your mistakes and being clear about what happened and not keeping people in the dark. But it happens. That's all I have to say about that.
I was going to ask you, John, because you got a number, you got a number of websites that you've developed and support through WooCommerce, and we got a couple that we support. Basically, was you surprised that this has happened? Has the recent updates been a little bit less painful, or do you think this just goes with the territory, John?
This last update on some of the sites that I updated, I did notice some stuff going on. So it's a little surprising that they pulled it from the actual repository for the moment, but I guess that happens sometimes. That's the hard thing about developing any sort of plugin or theme in this big of an ecosystem. I'm sure Chris feels this pain, is you're having to play well with so many other moving parts. It's the testing, it becomes really critical. I'm a little surprised that they pulled it from the repo until they get this next fix in, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with Chris, and I agree with you. I think it's probably the right thing to do, but on the other hand, it's quite surprising to some degree that it happened. What do you think, Sally?
Well, there's a certain irony to the fact that, you know, this was going to be the version of WooCommerce that worked with any theme, and they've had to roll it back because of theme conflicts. And you know, I think some of that is because, well, you know, you had a lot of uh, themes where there was some kind of, you know, workaround or extra plugin or something in order to make it compatible with WooCommerce, and then because of that, the new version had some issues. So, for instance, I build on Genesis, and a bunch of people were like, "Hey, have you noticed there's this weird thing happening where on, you know, category pages where you suddenly see, or you know." And you know, the Genesis team pushed out a new version of Genesis Connect for WooCommerce to help with that. And there were, you know, there were a couple of other issues. And I was, you know, intensely working on a site with WooCommerce on my local install just at the time that came out. And I did notice some of these issues, and they were not catastrophic. And you know, but they were noticeable, and I can see that would have been somewhat upsetting on a live site. And if there were, you know, and if they had been more drastic, which I gather they were in some cases, you know, you'd be pretty upset, and you'd want to roll it back. And so, you know, I agree that, you know, although it's awkward for them that this happened, that, you know, taking it, you know, pulling the update off until they've been able to fix the things they're aware of makes sense. And it's, you know, that's a sign that they care about their customers and how they are affected by the changes. And, you know, there are so many different themes and so many different other plugins that it's, you know, I don't think anybody could actually test something against every single possible combination of things they would be using. And so this is going to happen to people sometimes with updates. I think that they're trying to move in the right direction in terms of being easier to integrate with other themes, and not doing those awkward, like, why is my sidebar at the bottom of my WooCommerce page kinds of things that used to occur. And I'm sure they'll get it fixed in a little while, and everything will be fine.
Well, you know, John, do you think in general that, you know, since that, you know, it was bought by Automatic, and I think that's over 18 months, almost 2 years now. God, time flies. Do you think it's been getting a lot better? And can you see a clear path, you know, the improvements they've done? Do you think it's becoming more competitive with things like Shopify? Where do you think the landscape's going, John?
I mean, honestly, I feel like for myself and for like a lot of people that I talk to as well, I feel a lot more people are actually checking out Shopify at this point, because running a WooCommerce shop, once you add in extensions and stuff like that, sometimes Shopify makes a little bit more sense. And if anything, I see, you know, a more people being open to trying Shopify at this point. I think the whole goal of automatic acquiring WooCommerce was a long-term play. And when it happened at the time, I think everybody expected it to be integrated into WordPress. Maybe Gutenberg being rolled into core is part of that as well. Maybe the long-term play is to offer up something like Squarespace, where you have e-commerce in a self-hosted platform. You know, maybe that is the long-term play. That would seem logical to me. I think that, I still think that's the whole reason why it was acquired. So that would be the most logical thing.
Yes, but can we just talk for a minute about how this acquisition made it really hard to buy anything from WooCommerce.com?
Yeah, ridiculously hard.
You know, this is for this site that I'm working on now. You know, the WooCommerce was having a sale for, you know, Black Friday, Sunday, Cyber Monday. So I'm saying to my client, you know, we need to buy these plugins now because you're going to get 30% off of them. And she tried, you know, but you go there and you have to like sign in with your WordPress.com account. before you can purchase anything. Now, we have a WordPress.com account for the site because it uses some other things, but she didn't know what it was. So, she had to like transfer money to me so that I could, log in with the appropriate WordPress.com account in order to purchase these things for her. And that is just an incredibly stupid move in terms of you do not ever want to make it hard for people to give you money. So this was really annoying. I mean, I ended up getting a refund on one of those plugins because it turned out we didn't need it. And that was actually a whole lot easier than buying it in the first place.
Yes, that's a really extremely good point. What do you think, Chris?
In terms of improvement, I've seen WooCommerce. For me, I would just say incremental improvement, the same as it's always been, just slowly getting better. I didn't see any kind of extreme growth in features. I use WooCommerce. I'm a power user. We sell our Lifter LMS software with it. We use Woo subscriptions. We built our own. We like it because it is open source, so we add features to it all the time to increase conversions, optimize our license key, optimize our students or our customers' account experience inside our website. So we love it, but I think, like we were talking about Liquid Web earlier, there is a place for like awesome WooCommerce, but in the spirit of our other conversation about leadership and vision, I think we need to hear a clear vision of like, what is the future of WooCommerce? I saw they just opened up their affiliate program recently again, which is interesting. We have this whole WordPress.com login issue trying to buy things. Like, we need a map of where it's going. It's great for me as a power user, but I think the end user setting up their first store, the competition, like that, improve on that with some vision.
I think you're really spot on there, actually, because I don't see it. It could be very beneficial to have a hosted solution, and then also for data transfer, for theme transfer, to have the option that you could at some stage have your own fully hosted solution under your own total control, because I think with a fully hosted solution, there's you want to keep it simple. That's the whole purpose. So there will be a stage where a substantial percentage of your clientele might outgrow what your fully hosted platform can offer. So, and to have a solution there that's in the same community is really quite beneficial, isn't it? There's only, you can extensively, to some extent, modify Shopify with JavaScript and add-ons. But I found that there's a certain level where you really don't want to go down that road. You really want to look at your own hosted solution. And when you look at the competition and all the plugin and the whole community, WooCommerce is the natural way to go, isn't there? But I think there is a problem because, like what you said, Chris, there's a bit of a lack of vision, isn't there? What do you think, Sally? Am I waffling?
No, I think you're. There may well be a vision for WooCommerce. It just hasn't been, explained, especially clearly to the community. And I worked on a Shopify site once. My impression of it was, it's, to set up a certain kind of store, it's really easy. I just actually recommended it to somebody yesterday who is not a technical person at all, but it's not easy to customize if you need something that they don't already provide. So there is likely to come a point for people, or some people may even be starting out there, where they need the flexibility and the power that WooCommerce offers, and WooCommerce does have a very large market share for e-commerce. But there are clearly some things that need to be smoothed out, and that the challenge of making something that has so much power simple to use is that may be something that that you can only simplify the process so far and still keep the flexibility, and it's an issue WordPress as a whole has at this point. And so we may always be looking with WooCommerce at a solution that is more for people who need the sophistication and the control than for people who just want to sell like one or two products that are very simple to set up. And I don't know that that's bad necessarily, but I do think that there does come a point where you have to make a statement about who is this for.
Yeah, and I think the same thing applies to WordPress.com, and I think the decision to allow third-party plugins to some. I don't actually know what the situation with that is at the present moment, but I really thought that was really clouding. Oh, I'm really getting jumbled here, but really. It was a step a bit too far. I think there just needs to be clarification of what WordPress.com will do and when you should then move to a fully hosted, your own hosted solution. In a way, it needs, like what Chris says, a bit of leadership. And I think if that had been provided, that the situation about what you hear through Twitter and various other sources wouldn't have happened so much, maybe. But I'm probably totally deluded myself. So let's get on to the next story, which was one that came from Sallie, and it wasn't on my radar, but I think it's really interesting. Is that eBay's ditching PayPal? They've had enough of old PayPal. Would you like to give us some more info, Sallie, about this story?
Right. So this came through one of my news subscriptions. So somebody I know, not through WordPress. There are people I know who are not WordPress people.
You sure?
Had flagged this, and it particularly caught my eye because the payment processor that eBay is switching to is Dutch, and my husband is Dutch, so I forwarded that to him. But looked at this and I'm like, oh really? I didn't know that PayPal and eBay had split off from each other as companies 3 years ago. I missed that news. But the headline says PayPal stock tumbles, and I'm fairly sure that's going to be temporary. That that the thing about news headlines affecting stocks is that they are usually blips. And I don't know that, not having eBay attached is necessarily going to be a bad thing for PayPal, because, part of the reason that PayPal decided to split off from eBay was that eBay's, monstrous growth had really slowed down. And PayPal had some things they want to do. And I haven't noticed in terms of working with PayPal that things have changed especially drastically. I mean, PayPal is something that I use myself, and that I know a lot of people use. A lot of clients use it for their sites, although these days I always tell people to use something, to use Stripe or something else, because if PayPal is such a pain to work with in setting up your e-commerce site. It's like perfectly fine to use for I invoice clients through PayPal all the time. That's easy. But it's so much easier to set up your WooCommerce store to work with Stripe than with PayPal. So, I'm sure PayPal is going to need to pay attention, but I'd actually be surprised if the change, means that much to eBay in terms of, making things better for them and their customers. But it is this is kind of a reminder that, there are things outside of WordPress that affect WordPress users, and things like, your merchant services and payment processors are definitely one of them.
Yeah, I briefly looked at it. Are they? I don't think they're saying. Are you not going to be able to pay at all if you purchase something from eBay with PayPal, or is it just another option?
I think what they're doing is switching to, you'll be paying by card through these Aiden or whatever they're called people, instead of using PayPal, Adyen. And, I do know a lot of people who don't like to use PayPal. It makes them nervous. And I think a lot of those are less technical people, but then a lot of folks are selling to less technical people. And they who maybe weren't using PayPal before and find having to create a PayPal account in order to buy something, a step of, something that's going to slow them down and make them less likely to buy. So
I'm totally the opposite. I prefer, when I'm dealing with actually, I haven't used eBay for quite a while, but funny enough, last week I did use them because I wanted to purchase something that was available through eBay, and it was a good offer, and I got it delivered, and it is what it looks like it should be, which is not always the case. When I'm dealing with a new merchant online, I prefer not to give them my credit card details. I prefer to try them out and pay through PayPal. So I don't know if
it's I just renewed a domain name using PayPal and do I use it a lot. And so I think there are going to be some people for whom that the switch in eBay will be inconvenient, but I have a feeling that there's kind of a divide between the people like us who started using PayPal like practically when it came into existence, who are early adopters of technology and who find PayPal convenient. And I use my PayPal debit card for most stuff because they give me, cash back, and they also send me email receipts. So, I'm always going to have a receipt, which I, might not get from certain places if I use my card from my bank. I think there are people who are sort of, devotees of PayPal, and other people who are suspicious of PayPal because it seems like one of these weird technology things, and who are they, and how is this working, and all of that. And that's probably just going to, stay the same. And if you are aiming at the general public, then that's still going to be more common for them to use a card, I think.
Yeah. What do you think, John? Did you think this story's got any interest at all? I think it has. It might be just driven by internal. Probably eBay had a contract when they broke up. They had to use them, and it ended, and they got a better deal from these people.
Right. That's what it says, is they were required to continue with PayPal for 2 years or something after
Forever.
that. and that after that they had an option to change, and they've exercised that option.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think is happening with eBay, John? Do you think it's dying a bit, or just stable, or what do you reckon there?
I think they just got a better deal on, because to process payments, there's usually like a small fee. And I think they just got a better deal. So that would be taking effect, be taking effect like sometime in mid 2020. By 2021, it would be fully integrated. I don't think that it will, affect anybody, shopping on eBay. I think it was just a way to save cost unseen to the consumer. So,
but do you, because obviously they got their third party, I know they're still pretty big in the UK, but against the mammoth of Amazon, but they're still a really major force on online retailing. And I know there are some businesses that, set up just through eBay, and they do okay, don't they, John?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of places that set up just through eBay, and for certain types of things that works. And definitely there's people that set up shop like on Amazon and eBay and their main website and, other places. It's just one more place that you want to be seen. So, and it's one more place that you can sell products. I think for some types of shops, though. I mean, you can survive just on eBay, but I think a lot of the bigger shops, they just have a presence there because it's one more place to sell their goods. So,
what did you think of this, Chris? Got any comments?
Just that PayPal has been around a long time. So I'm a believer in the diffusion of life cycle of innovation, where you start with.
That's a very large phrase there, Chris. Could you you lost me there? Can you explain what you just said?
It just means that all businesses live and die. And in the early days, you have the innovators like Elon Musk, who helped start PayPal. He's doing rockets now. He's doing something. He's going into space.
He's been in space quite a long time, actually, Chris.
Yeah. So then after that, you have the early adopters, the innovators, the early majority, the late majority, and then the laggards. I can't quite tell where PayPal is at on its business journey, but I use it as an option to sell my product. I have an add-on for PayPal, but I also regularly actually get pitched by payment processing startups with fresh ideas. They're light, they're agile, they're trying to innovate in the payment space. And I don't see PayPal doing a lot of innovation. So that, it's just interesting. I just see it as part of that bigger picture story of the life cycle of a business.
Well, actually, I think they did innovate a little bit. Mostly down to Stripe was eating their lunch. So they innovate. I think they have improved a bit over the past year, but I also totally agree with you, Chris. They really have to be driven before, their API system was notorious, wasn't it? I've seen developers actually crying their coffee trying to deal with that load of crap. Oh, sorry, Popo. Don't suspend my. Please don't suspend my account. I love you, PayPal. There we go. So I think we're going to wrap it up. I think we've had a broad. We've knocked out about 5 or 6 stories here, haven't we? We've got through it, haven't we, folks? So I'm going to let the panel. How can people learn more about you, Sallie?
You can find me at WPFangirl.com. The meetup is at eastbaywp.com, and I am at Sallie Goetsch on Twitter. And if you can spell my name, you will find me. I am unique in Google.
That's great. And John, how can people find out about what you do for them and the great services that you offer, John?
Yeah, sure thing. So you can go to lockdowndesign.com. You can see what types of SEO services we're featuring there, aimed mostly toward manufacturing companies and other blue-collar industries.
And they desperately need it, don't they, John?
Yeah, and it makes a difference. So,
make America first. That's what I say. There we go. Sorry, John. I just couldn't resist it. Chris, how can people find out about what you're doing and what Lifter LMS is doing?
You can find out more about me and Lifter LMS at for a membership site builders called LMS Cast. So you can find us on iTunes there.
Yeah, I listened to it. It's a great podcast. You had a recent interview with Syed. Would you like to quickly say about that?
Sure. I had an interview with Syed Balki from Opt-in Monster is one of his companies. He's got about 5 others. But yeah, it was a great interview. Syed, I really kind of dug in and just picked his brain for tips and tricks on opt-in optimization, conversion, sales funnels. If you're in the business of selling and marketing, Syed is definitely somebody to follow. So I'd encourage you to check out that interview with Syed Balki.
If you're in business, you're in the business of selling and marketing.
Yeah, you really covered some great topics about affiliate marketing. You brought up some advice, which I'm going to act on myself, actually. I've listened to it twice, and I'm going to have to listen to it a 3rd time because you really did cover a lot of stuff in that interview, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah. When Syed talks, I take notes. If I go to a conference, I always have a notebook. And when Syed's on stage, I'm ready. I got a cup of coffee and my notebook. And then a lot of the stuff he recommends is quick to implement. It's not always just big strategy and stuff. It's tactics that are very useful.
So I'll suggest to the audience, after you binged on WP-Tonic, obviously, you should go over to Chris's and listen to some of his, especially that interview. It was fantastic. We're going to wrap it up now. I just want to say, you know, if you want to join us on the Friday, if you're, you know, I haven't had anybody fill in the forms yet, which has surprised me. But if you've got a plugin, you're doing a WordCamp presentation, you're doing a WordCamp, you're doing something in the WordPress community that you think is interesting, fill in the form, which you can find in the footer on the page, which you find on the footer, called Friday Shows. And there's a form on there, fill it in, and then if I think it's interesting, we can have a chat, and you can join us on the Friday show, and we have a discussion about whatever you want to discuss. I think that's a fantastic offer myself. So moves you over to that page, fill in the form, and you could join us on the upcoming Friday show. If you want to support the show, go to iTunes. I know it's a little bit of pain, especially on a PC, but give us a review. It does really help the show. And come and join us next Friday, where we'll be discussing WordPress and a load of other stuff. See you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.